It was a sad day, indeed, a very sad Friday for me. Within a few minutes, I would see if my life had turned into a mess out of my control. The only thing to do for the time being was to wait and see if the expected crap would really happen. However, I wasn't any poor wimp who would mourn and feel sorry for myself. No, I had never forgotten what my old sergeant once, a long time ago, taught me, that action is the best defense. My only choice was to fight for at least saving my honor, even if many other things went to hell. To my advantage, I received some information yesterday that gave me time enough to be well prepared for the events to come. That was the reason I was sitting in a friend's black Peugeot 307, parked in a discreet corner of the motel parking lot. I was told my wife would be here after lunch, and now it was nervously exciting to see if her red Toyota Yaris would arrive. She came and was followed a few seconds later by her real man in his extender BMW that he parked beside my wife's car. He said a few words to her and walked to the registration office. I left my car and walked to my wife's Toyota, opened the unlocked door on the passenger side, got in and sat down in the seat. My totally surprised wife screamed, "You! Billy! What in the hell are you doing here?" I gave her a brown envelope and said, "Not much, only giving divorce papers to my cheating, soon-to-be ex-wife. Have a great time fucking your noble real man, and feel free to stay here forever." She began screaming, "No, you are totally wrong. It is not what you think. Let me explain why I'm here, and I can promise you, it is not for any cheating. I demand a divorce, and don't give a shit if you are fucking that worm that just ran away to get the room key to your love nest. Feel free to be his whore, and as I said, I don't give a shit." It was obvious that my once-upon-a-time loving wife had expected this afternoon to be a much more romantic event with her obviously horny noble lover, because she began to cry loudly. Now, her so-called real man was coming back, waving the room key, and when he saw Rebecca crying and still sitting in her car, he opened the door on her side and asked, "Who the hell is he, and what has he done to you?" While he was saying that, I got out of the car, took up a small plastic bottle from my pocket, and while rushing over to him, I heard her sob, "He is my husband, and he is going to get both of us divorced for doing this." The lover shouted, "I'll beat that stupid idea out of the damn bastard." When the lover turned against me, I aimed at his face and squeezed the bottle containing a mix of water and shampoo and the resulting water jet against his face, and eyes blinded him and had him screaming with anger. While he was temporarily out of action, it was time for my second weapon, a dart with 3 flukes soldered to the head. I took a quick step, getting behind him, where I took a hard swing of my right hand and pushed the dart through his pants and underwear deep into his left bottom. Thanks to the barbed tip, it remained stuck and was impossible to withdraw without surgery. My actions were successful, so I left the now obviously unlucky lovers. He had shampoo in his eyes, a dart in his arse, and was swearing like an old harbour worker. My cheating wife was still sitting, loudly crying in her car seat. I rushed to my car and left the motel parking lot without any further problems. Whatever would happen later that Friday, one thing was for sure: those lovers would not be in the mood for any romantic sex. Let me start with where it all began. I'm Billy Svensson, a 37 years old Scandinavian guy, for the time being married to 36 years old Rebecca. Our 2 children are Emil, 9, and Estelle, 7 years old. Rebecca and I have been together for 11 years and married during 10 years of that time. We have almost everything couples in our position are dreaming about, so we ought to be very happy, but I regret to say that we are not. In my humble opinion, the main reason for our unhappiness is Rebecca's mother. Though she is not green, doesn't have a tail, and doesn't spit fire, she must still be regarded as a genuinely hostile dragon who has never avoided any chance to be a pain in the ass. To me, that began the first time I met her. I was invited for dinner at Rebecca's home. It was more of a cross-examination than a pleasant dinner. After a lot of questions, the dragon said that she didn't like my name because Billy is a Y name and she didn't like people with I names. Upper-class families never gave their children such names, as in Billy, Kenny, Ronnie, Molly, Nellie, Cindy, etc. Thanks for that, I thought. I was surprised when both Rebecca and her obviously spineless wimp of a father remained silent while I was humiliated by the dragon. She continued by saying that Svensson is a typical farmhand name from the days when a son got his father's first name together with son as his last name. Then she went on by saying that she had expected something better for Rebecca since her other daughter, Natalie, was going to marry a fine man from a noble family. I had heard enough, stood up and said, "Isn't that guy's father a bastard in some distant branch of that family? And what is he? An unemployed parasite on the social welfare system?" Before somebody replied, I continued, "I need some fresh air. Are you coming with me, Rebecca?" To my great surprise, Rebecca came with me, and we left what I regarded as a dragon's nest. I knew Natalie's boyfriend Alexander from my school days, and wasn't surprised that he, with his conning skills, had gotten Rebecca's weird mother to regard him as a god's gift to Natalie. That was not my business, and why should I care? Of course, I wasn't invited to Natalie and Alexander's big wedding, and didn't care a shit about that either. What I cared about was Rebecca's and my relationship, and that grew better and better until it went too good, resulting in her accidental pregnancy. That got her dragon mother almost spitting fire when she rang me and shouted her opinions about the kind of scumbag I really was in hers and other decent people's opinions, and that any kind of wedding at her expense would be out of the question. The Los Cristianos Scandinavian church on the Spanish Canary Island, Tenerife, is a very popular place for small-scale weddings, so Rebecca and I went there with our best friend and got married. Both Rebecca and I found fine jobs in a town 210 kilometers away from our hometown, so I had minimal contact with her mother, who spent all her efforts and a lot of money on Natalie and Alexander. The next years were good for Rebecca and me and our 2 children. We made fair money, bought a nice house, and made many friends in our new hometown. Our sex life was still on a fair level. Thanks to the distance, I had minimal interactions with Rebecca's family because her parents never visited us, and when back in our hometown, I saw my family and Rebecca went to hers. At last, even Alexander had enough of the dragon we shared as mother-in-law. To everybody's surprise, he had done well at his job and had gladly accepted a promotion that included a transfer to a new location 280 kilometers away. After some arguing with Natalie, he had given her a simple choice: accept the distance or get a divorce. She followed him to the new job. Now, the dragon remembered that she had a daughter named Rebecca and began making daily phone calls. After a while, these somehow began to get Rebecca, without any real reason, acting chillier toward me. The calls centered on more nagging about what I did, had not done, or ought to do, and even more bullshit about how well everything had gone for Natalie and Alexander. Our relationship didn't get better when I told Rebecca that the main reason for Alexander moving away was to get a far distance from the hostile dragon, who was his mother-in-law. One accident never comes alone, and Rebecca's feelings for me got even chillier when a new guy, also from some side branch of a noble family, began at her job. Rather soon, Rebecca began describing him as some kind of a superman, or at least a real man. He was married to a nurse, but his wife was in Tanzania, Africa, volunteering as a nurse at some medical aid center, and still had about 3 months left on her tour. The real man and his wife intended to buy a house when she was back, but in the meantime, he was living in our town, renting a room at his wife's married sister's house. Rebecca got me really fed up when she compared my doings, my vocabulary, and even my clothes with that real man at her job. There's no need to say who the winner ended up being in those comparisons. Though Rebecca and I still had sex, my attempts were often met with comments such as, "Now again?" and "Don't you ever get enough?" If it hadn't been for our children, and for Rebecca's many good sides, I would have dumped her a long time ago. But she was obviously faithful, a good mother, keen on cooking, kept herself in nice shape, and we worked well together, keeping the house clean and a nice garden. If she had not started her nagging and all her other sour comments to me, she would still have been my dream wife. Of course, I wasn't a wimp who took all her crap without telling her my opinion too. That increased our problems. Just like one evening after our children were sleeping, Rebecca said, "I really wish you could be more like my co-worker. If you are in love with that conning faggot, why don't you file for divorce and be free to be his whore? But as long as we are married, I will never accept any cheating. Fuck that asshole behind my back, and be sure that I will teach him that though you may act as a cheap whore, your services will have a high price tag." Rebecca began screaming hysterically, "You simple bastard! What in the hell did you just say about me? How dare you call me a whore? Be sure that you will pay for that." "Isn't it better that your customers have to pay?" I shouted back. Before she could make a nasty reply, 2 scared and crying children came to us, and I began doing my best to calm them down. 2 very chilly weeks followed after her outburst. The first weekend, she and our children went to see her parents, and then the next weekend, when Natalie and Alexander came to see us. Rebecca played the good wife, and was nice to me until our guests left on Sunday morning. When we waved goodbye to them, she said, "Don't be stupid enough to expect any favors from me." The next Thursday, the shit hit the fan when one of Rebecca's female co-workers called me at my job and after a short introduction, went straight to the problem. She said, "We have a new, very charming guy here at work, and there are 3 female co-workers who have been competing to seduce him, your wife, me, and 1 more single girl. Although we begged your wife to skip this, since she's already married to a good man, she refused to listen to us, and now she is proud as hell and bragging about being the winner of our competition and going to the motel with him tomorrow after lunch." I thanked her and persuaded her to keep the call a secret so I could do something about our problem. Back home after the job, I watched Rebecca and got the feeling that she was slightly jollier than usual. After the phone call, I started thinking about what the old sergeant said during my army service. He had been a great admirer of the Apache warriors in the old Arizona Territory and their tactics of surprise, hit, and then disappear. I had no experience with street fighting, so my only chance to win was to do just as those old warriors had done. Rebecca had bragged to me about the real man's black belt in some Japanese fighting sport, so the surprise element was very important. Pepper spray would have been great, but that is forbidden and not available in this country, so I had to find a simple alternative. A small plastic bottle with hair shampoo and water would be my weapon, and it worked well after a painful testing in my own eyes. The sergeant told us a lot about how surprisingly effective the silent arrows with barbed heads from a well-hidden ambush had been at creating fear among soldiers during the frontier wars in Arizona. Of course, I could not use a bow and arrows against Rebecca's lover, but the idea got me to my small workshop in the basement. I took the closest thing that was available, a dart. By soldering 3 1-centimeter long pieces of sewing needles in small angles around the tip of the dart, I made a barbed tip. Hopefully, it would be difficult to remove from some soft body parts without surgery in a hospital. There was no chance or interest in testing that weapon on myself. After some thinking, I had a simple plan without any need to buy complicated equipment for my action. Divorce papers given to Rebecca and her lover, blinded for a few seconds, would give me time to push the barbed dart into his bottom. I doubted that he would remain interested in sex with my slut wife, at least not while he had that dart in his arse. The next morning, Rebecca dressed in a rather sexy dress, but I pretended not to see anything strange with that and avoided all comments. Both of us acted as usual for a Friday morning. At my job, I exchanged cars for the day with my fellow worker and good friend Eric. We did that often when he needed my Volvo V70 instead of his own smaller Peugeot 307. During the morning, I went to the courthouse for the divorce forms and filled one out at my office. After some searching, I succeeded in connecting to the main office for the aid organization in Tanzania and got the email address for Rebecca's lover's wife there. Then I took off at lunchtime and went to Rebecca's job and found that both she and Loverboy's car were still in the parking lot. Obviously, they had lunch at the nearby restaurant before going to the motel, so I bought a couple of hot dogs and went to the motel to wait for them. As you already know, the lovers came to the motel, and my actions went just as planned. So my time in the army hadn't been totally wasted, and I felt grateful to the old sergeant there. At 3:30, my home phone rang, and the same female voice that told me yesterday about Rebecca going to the motel asked me, "Did you go to the motel today? And did you see what you expected to see?" Thanks for calling. Yes, I went there, but your co-workers weren't happy to see me. I tried to cheer up my wife with some divorce papers, but that gift didn't make her happier. The man threatened to hit me, so I had to defend myself, and he got some damage to his bottom. I presume my wife must have taken him to the hospital. It was not much of a romantic date, at least not in my opinion, I told her. Is that really true? Oh yes, it is. I have no reason to lie to you. My wife isn't home yet, but feel free to call her cell phone and ask her. Of course, I can't guarantee that she will tell you the whole truth, I said. Then she, whoever she was, thanked me and asked for Rebecca's cell phone number, which I gave her. Hopefully, they had a pleasant chat. After that, I sent an email to the real man's wife in Africa and explained the whole situation. Rebecca was back home already by 4 o'clock, and it was clearly visible that she wasn't happy at all. She stared at me and said, "We have to talk and do it now, at once." No problem for me. You and your lover boy got what you wanted, and you had to have been totally insane if you expected me to be a poor wimp taking the humiliation you and your so-called real man intended to give me. No way, Rekka. I'll never take such crap without fighting for my pride, I replied. Though he had not done you any harm, you hurt him so badly that I had to take him to the emergency room at the hospital. Be sure you will have to pay for that. I told her, actually, we are 4 adults and 2 children sharing the bill for what you and that creep did. You can't be serious if you think that the poor nurse in Africa is happy after she received my email with the information about you and her husband. Now she knows what a shameless cheating creep she married and trusted. She shouted, "Did you really do such a nasty thing to his innocent wife? Even threatening me with divorce was a very nasty thing to do." I haven't threatened you with anything. Just sign the divorce papers, and you'll get fair terms to be a free woman in 6 months. Refusing to sign and going to a lawyer will cost you a lot, and you will still end up with the same terms in the end, I told her. Now she understood that I was serious and began sobbing. Oh my God, are you really serious? Please listen to me for heaven's sake. I haven't done anything wrong. Yes, you have. By joining your imbecilic mother's vendetta against me without any real reason, only because I don't have an upper-class name, you let her persuade you to be a nagging bitch to me. You are in love with a co-worker that you regard as my superior in all matters. based on what you have always told me. Then I found out that you have been competing with 2 single co-workers to get a date with this so-called real man. When you won that stupid game, you left the job early today, driving to a motel to collect your prize, and that meant cheating on me by fucking a married man. You know my opinion about cheating, so there can't be any doubt about these consequences. She continued sobbing. I didn't cheat on you, neither today nor ever before, that's for sure, and you are the only man I love. Have you forgotten that we have 2 children? What about them? Our children are the only reason that your nagging ass wasn't kicked out a long time ago. I've heard day in and day out about all my faults, according to your mother's opinion, and from your own opinion of how damn worthless I'm compared to that defenseless creep of a real man you won, dated at the motel, and obviously love. I'm humiliated by your cheating attempt, and fed up with all the other crap you are always throwing at me. After a while, she understood that the game was over, and we began to negotiate the divorce. Rebecca signed the papers after I had agreed that we both should continue living in our house and wouldn't date anybody else during those 6 months until the divorce was final. That's the end of this story. If you found it engaging, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.